Eso, eso.
Okay. So as far as I know, we're live. Our indicators on the web page, the event page, show that we're live, and I'm checking now, and it looks like the event will start in a few moments, and it usually takes 20 to 30 to actually get going. So we're going to give it a minute or so, and then we're going to take radical measures to get the show on the road because this one I want to have people live. And it looks, lo and behold, this worked today. So I can officially get on the bandwagon here and say, welcome everybody to the show. What is the positive? And I'm really excited today and a little bit anxious, I got to admit, because we're encouraging people to take a 30-day challenge. My name is Roland, and I'm going to take no less than maybe the biggest challenge of all the people that are participating. And I challenge you to take the biggest challenge you can, because that's when we see results. And if we do something simple, we get simple results, and that's cool. And I encourage you to do that. But I'm going to take a bigger step and see what I can do. We have William Rock in the audience, and I'm really glad you're here. We have We Wake Ananda, and I'm really glad you're here. And thank you very much. From a couple weeks ago, We Wake in, he told us that he would be interested in participating in a 30-day challenge. And we're going to talk about it today. And who are we? My co-hosts in the green room, starting with Shira Hunt. And Shira, if you would say something to the people listening about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Hello, I'm Shira. I am a vibrational medicine teacher and therapist. I use sound and frequency in treatment, and I'm just really blessed and excited to be present on the show. I love hanging out with Roland. It's always a good place to be. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to interject as I'm introducing other people, William Rock says, super excited that Google Hangout works today. And I am too, because sometimes it doesn't. And let's see, that's he's the same person there. Let's see. And then We Waken Onda's out there, and he says he's ready. So I'm assuming that we're going to be able to execute things properly, and the show is going to go as scheduled and as planned. And I'm very, very thankful that it's all working out. Thank you very much, you guys. And on to the rest of our co-hosts. We have George Stewart. George, please say hi and tell people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm George, Middle Tennessee. Background is basically 30-odd years in the maritime world and then commercial, and I've done some stints in the entertainment industry. I'm the world traveler and the comic relief. So Roland tells me, anyway.
Cool. And then we have our grounding agent, and his name is Carlo Savio. Thank you, Carlo, for being with us today, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Good morning again, or good afternoon, wherever you are on the coast. I'm Carlos Savio in Las Vegas. I'm a small business management consultant and digitally fluent, self-taught web developer, and proficient in several modern programming languages. Been using the internet almost daily since 1992. I'm really enjoying being on this show. My hobby is world religions and all the byproducts that we get from that. And so that's it.
Cool. Thank you very much. And this is a very unique show today. We're teetering on the edge of our precipice, and we're going to be diving off into the canyons next week, 7 days from now. Because 7 days from now is the 1st of March. And at the end of March, I complete my 4 years of being in this wheelchair. So it's kind of a unique time for me. But before the 4 years are up, there's something that I have to achieve. And that's going to incorporate this challenge to help kick me into high gear and make this thing happen. So I will explain more about my challenge in just a little bit. But we're going to talk about the concept of challenges and the concept of courageous challenges. Because my theory is this. I've read this all over the internet, and I'm convinced that there can be no courage without fear. Now, that's a short circuit. You could break it down in a lot of ways, okay? Fear might be the fear of pain, fear of anxiety, fear of emotional trauma, fear. However you define it, people suffer because of some concept in their mind that tortures them into thinking, I'm going to have a problem with this. And so they develop a fear because it's something that maybe they have evidence in their life, as a year before or maybe days before, something that's caused them to think this could happen to me, or this could happen again, or what am I going to do if this does something to my family? Or so they have fears, and fears are projecting things out into the future that have not happened yet. Yet we have fear. And so when those things come up, you have this feeling of negativity that comes up, and that's what we're identifying. So when you talk about challenges, a challenge is facing some level of fear. Now there's people who take the rock climbing challenge. Can I make it to the top of the mountain or the peak or just this hill that we're trying to get up? And if they think I may not make it, but they take that step anyway, and they go for even the minor challenge of walking down the street. If they do it, then they get back to their place afterwards and they goes, huh, that was pretty good. I made it. That's an accomplishment. Well, for the time being, they met their challenge. But now challenges take all forms and shapes and sizes. And what we're saying is that in 30 days, whatever your challenge that you take is, whatever the effort is that you keep at for 30 days, it will change you somehow. Now, we'll get into expectations with the changes in a little bit, but I'm going to ask my co-host to describe what their concept of challenges is and what they think the people in the audience may be facing or considering when you talk about challenges. Because we're talking about changing things that we don't like or that we are undesirable about our life. Otherwise, it would be a challenge. So when we talk about a 30-day challenge, what comes to mind, Shira?
Well, for me, it's about taking a risk, and that's a scary thing for most of us. Is that to me, one of the biggest problems we have in our daily processes is getting out of the comfort zone. And many times we have these things in our world that we don't like, that really don't suit us or aren't functional or aren't loving and supportive to us. And we have them because we're afraid. We are afraid to take the step of change because this is the comfort zone. Even though it's not wonderful, it's the comfort zone. And I believe that change happens right at the edge of your comfort zone. So you've got to step outside of that. You've got to venture into something that's a little scary, that's a little unknown, that's a little hard, that's a little risky in order to really have the change. That's what challenge is to me.
Very good, very, very good. And we'll build on that, but do my other two gentlemen have anything to add to this? George?
Yeah, I'll throw something in. Actually, I want to throw a little poem in just to start my piece off. It's from a guy called Ralph Waldo Trine, who I've never heard of before apart from this. The poem goes, "Some of your griefs you have cured, and the sharpest you have survived. But what torments of pain you endured from evils that never arrived." It's all in the brain, it's all in the head. And what I've come to know and understand is that we get a choice whether we step into a challenge or not. If we choose to live our lives in a safe zone, the universe is going to come along and hit us with that famous 2x4 anyway. So my approach to it is I'd rather choose the challenge and choose to move ahead and expand. That's the way the universe is always going. It's always expanding. We may as well follow along. Change is the one constant in the universe. And I'm reminded about that saying about let's go out on a limb. That's where nature put the fruit.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, George. Um, I might even have to have you repeat the poem again. But at the moment, we'll move on to Carlo, and if Carlo has something to contribute regarding
Sure.
challenges.
Um, the reason people give themselves challenges is to experience life more. And I want to leave that there for a second and go to the other end of that is fear. Fear is an innate and a learned response. And all it simply is a way to feel safe in an unfamiliar place. So going back to challenges, and everybody has a different concept of challenge. You know, one person may want to run a triathlon, and another person just wants to get out of bed early in the morning. Okay, so the idea is that you want to express your life, and the mitigating factor is if you are not a 100% of life as you think it should be, with all our limitations, then you're a certain percentage of non-life. And that in itself is motivating to do what we do. And that's my take on it.
You know, listening to you folks is funny because with each of your statements, I could have gone off on a conversation that will take the rest of the hour. And that is the nature of truth speak. What I'm talking about when I say truth speak is like it doesn't matter what religion you are attached to. It doesn't matter what your philosophical background is. But when you hear something that makes sense to them, is honest and truthful, something inside you goes, I like what they're saying there. And even if we can't prove some of the things, we get the essence of what's going on in our humanity. And when you hear truth, it somehow rings true. And something brings the four of us together, and we have conversation after conversation, week after week on Tuesdays, that really make a difference. So that's why we do this. So we are really taking on a huge concept here because we don't want to just talk about a subject. We want to do something. And in doing something, we're going to say, let's make a stand. Let's say, take action on something. And we don't want to make this something that we're all going to gang together and do this one thing, because the one thing is going to have a different meaning to everybody participating. But if you can choose your own challenge, that'll make a difference to you. And that's really all that matters. So at the end of the 30 days, we're going to ask people to step forward and say, what changes have you seen? By the way, we're saying hi to Dan Weeks. I'm glad you're here. And Barbara made it too. So thank you very much for showing up. And I'm glad to have you in the audience and part of the participation today. I will try to keep people intermingling and mixed with what we're producing today. And like WeWake says, and I'll bring that in right now, this is Wiwakananda. The riskiest thing we can do is take the safest option. Now, in speaking with life, I agree with you 100%. And sometimes when we take the safe option, we end up not living part of what we could have lived had we taken a little bit of chance. And as Shira said early on, taking risks. When you take risks, you have to take risks in order to face some kind of a challenge or make some difference in your experience. So basically we're talking about risky business. Life is risky. Well, it's risky to get up out of bed in the morning and walk down the street. Risk is risk. That's life. But if you look at it like it's a challenge because you're threatened by the environment and dogs and people and cars, and you can spend your time worrying about every little thing that could be easily a reason not to go out the front door. But we go out the front door anyway. We go to a restaurant, we go to work, we go to the library, we go see friends, we go anyway. And people in the midst of that have accidents, have problems, they wreck their cars, and so forth. So if you look at life and see the challenges of just daily living, we can easily say, man, life is risky and it poses these threats and challenges. And by golly, I haven't even left my house, but I'm a victim. I can't go out my front door. Why do people do it anyway? Why do we go? Because there's something to be gained by going. You gotta show up, and the more risk you take, the greater the rewards. And that's the equation that we have to consider here. There are two equations intermingling. Well, number one is the greater the risk that we take, the greater the potential reward. And we can look at that a lot of ways, but just kind of bear with me for the basics of the equation. The more risk we take, the greater the reward. The other thing is, intermingling with this, is that, as Carlo said, sometimes, and I think that George's poem reflects the same thing, sometimes we get to the other side and we realize, wow, that thing wasn't the big demon that I thought it was. I was indeed wrong about my assessment of what I thought it was, and that is exactly what fear is. We're having anxieties over something that has not happened, and it keeps us tied up and it keeps us immovable or immobile, static from moving on. So that's the whole concept of challenges. Carlo, you had something to add?
No, I was just smiling at what you're saying. I don't really have anything to add at the moment. But, okay, maybe I do. The cool part about challenges is that if you falter for a day or two, just move the number out another day. There's an expression I heard a long time ago that I really liked, and I'll say this in a non-sectarian sense. A saint is a sinner who never gave up. Mm-hmm. And by challenging yourself to express yourself, the Greeks call it chorme, the French call it élan vital, which is the desire to create, the desire to live, the desire to love and be loved. Those are all the challenges that we muster to. This is why I remember seeing an astronaut. I listened to an astronaut talk one time, and she was talking about living in a space station for 6 months. I mean, can you imagine living in a space station for 6 months? You know, and the idea is, she said, we got there through the collective consciousness of the human race.
Amen. I'll go for that. Remember that collective consciousness statement. And George, you had something to add?
Yeah, I was just thinking about people who always play it safe. You know the expression in a rut? My definition of a rut is a coffin with the ends kicked out.
Yeah.
And when you talk about fear, fear is fueled by the imagination. One thing I've learned about fear, it is infinite. Real facts, they're very finite. You've got to balance the two. If it's fear and it's in the mind, you're working with something that is far, far bigger than you are. You've got to bring it down and lock it down.
Very good. I love that. Shira, you had something also?
Yeah, I'd like to just bring people into a space of going inside and asking themselves, what is the opposite of what we are talking about? What do they have now? Without the challenge, what does life look like? When I used to be married to a wonderful man, loved him greatly, but his ideas about life caused us to separate. His ideas, you know, like in our culture especially, you work, 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 work so that you can get to retirement and then become a couch potato and sit around the rest of your life. What does that mean? You know, how is that living? How is that joyful? How is that exciting? And yet we're being told, you know, through the media, through all of the pieces that, you know, that people watch every day, that that's what we're shooting for. And so if you go inside and take a look at what you have, what you are unhappy with, and begin to say, you know, what am I stuck in? What is my everyday life? You know, his idea was, after the age of 60, your body starts to fall apart. Nobody wants you anymore. They toss you aside. You're unnecessary. Before you know it, they're going to put you in a nursing home and nobody even talks to you anymore. And the world is going to hell in a handbasket. That was his story, you know?
All in about 60 seconds.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's the story of a lot of Americans. You know, so we need to look at that and say, wait a minute. Who taught me that, and how real is it really? It's only real unless you make it so. You know, I know 75-year-old people who still run marathons. You know, life is what you make of it, and so begin to look at those pieces and say, is this where I want to be 10 years from now? Is this what I want to be in? And if not, what can I do?
William Rock, I'm sorry, as we're saying this, so much of what we're saying applies to a guy out in the audience, William Rock. And William Rock is an SEO and PPC specialist and a Google maniac who definitely has his challenges, as we all do. And he has been noting them in the comment stream. He has 15 out of 10 pain level at one point in time. He is now at a 3 out of 10 pain level. So obviously, without foreshortening his own story to make it unrelatable, he's had things that he's going through. And he has issues on even walking. He said right here, for me, if I could fall today or, well, walk 13K in steps and accomplish my goal for the day, but I don't want to be the guy that I have fallen and cannot get up, even though it happens often. So the concept is clear. Some days are better than others, but you only lose if you quit. And the thing is, we have to understand the principle here. Life goes on. Now, we can talk about death and what happens after death, and life doesn't go on after death. And I will debate that one forever because I don't believe even that. But, aside from that, we're talking about the living. We're talking about the now. We're talking about the here and now. Those of you who can hear my voice, we want to institute a challenge. And it's all about keeping at it, and not giving up. So, as I was saying to Shira earlier before the show started, I have a concept that I'm going to be introducing a challenge of my own and talk about my own situation so that people understand exactly what's going on with me, and so that you can kind of relate to exactly what my challenge is that I'm going to be doing for my 30 days. I'll be discussing that in a little bit. But the concept is, if I don't take this challenge, I can't see any change in my life. I won't see the change that I could see if I take the challenge. And we talked about the concept of like, what if I don't meet my challenge? What if I don't succeed? Now, we came to the conclusion that me not succeeding in my challenge means something probably totally different from other people. And in the audience listening, or whoever might see this in the future when they talk about challenges. Because the challenge is riddled with the concept of fear of failure, of not making it, and what's going to happen if I don't make it, and the consequences. Just considering the consequences of not finishing the challenge will keep a lot of people from even taking the challenge. And so my additional challenge to the people listening to this is that no matter what you do, if you take the challenge, it will change something in you. Now, maybe the goal will be missed by 50% or even 75%, but the 25% that you succeeded in applying to your situation is going to change you, and it may change you more radically than you think that your 25% will. I mean, you're rating yourself, gee, I only accomplished 25% of what I'm doing, but you did something different for 30 days. It's going to make a difference. And so quit worrying about the end result and just do the challenge. That's what I'm saying. That bearing that in mind, I would never voice or expose myself to this kind of challenge if I didn't believe I could do it. And so I believe, I inherently believe that I can do this. I believe in the law of attraction. I believe that we create our own reality. I believe a lot of those sayings that say that we are in control of our own life. And we just got to figure out how that works. And so many people think they know that they can protect themselves from the experience of life and keep themselves safe. In the meantime, really what they're doing is they're bottling themselves up, building their own box, and sitting away from actually living, and using a small percentage of their consciousness and their spiritual self, and they're calling that their experience. Now, free will, it's their choice. If they want to live 10% of their lives and they want to be totally happy with that, I say knock yourself out, or don't, but whatever. If you want to live that, that's fine. By the way, we're saying hello to Julie Sager-Nierenberg, I'm really, really grateful that you're able to show up. And I'm going to read your statement here and see how this fits in, because I know you always have something good to say. But in the meantime, does anybody have any concept to add to what I just said? Anybody will do.
There's a couple of things, and I'm forgetting, is it William, who you posted a few minutes ago, his little blurb on there about falling. I think one of the things is, we're setting what we are considering a large goal, a challenging goal, something that will take us to our limit. But I also want to stress that the small accomplishments that we make daily are very, very important to the mind. The mind is hardwired to notice what is wrong, to recognize what it can't have. That's the way the mind is hardwired. So when we start to have the negative talk of we didn't get this today or we didn't get that today, we back ourselves up 3-4 foot from where we started. So it's very, very important that if it's just one step today without falling, that at the end of the day you recognize that. And I think one of the powerful tools around this kind of work is that at the end of every day we focus on what was our accomplishment today. And maybe it's just for somebody, I didn't eat a donut today. I do that every day on my way to work, and I didn't do that today. That's a big one. Write it down, recognize, validate for yourself, so that the mind will begin to see that these small accomplishments are okay. Nobody's going to, the mind would have you believe that you're going to die if it goes wrong. I mean, that's just how we're wired. So there is no danger. There's only fear. But there is no danger. And all of us fall down sometimes, and the thought of not being able to get up is a scary one. But ultimately, if you can't get up by yourself, there's always someone to help you. There's a way to get to the next step. And we just have to embrace that. For one, we have to be able to receive, but we also have to notice whatever our small accomplishments are and value them.
And if we're polarized positive, we're going to say, yeah, every once in a while I do need a little bit of help. Thank God it was there, or whatever your thankfulness quotient is, and we say, okay, well, I needed a little help there and I got it. Thank God it was there, or thank the universe it was there, and now I can step on to another day. I'll get some rest today. I'll feel stronger tomorrow, and I can move on. Now, people are commenting in the comment stream, and they're inspired to write some chapters of a book, and I appreciate that, but I can't possibly show everything that I would want to say, but I'm going to try. Made a really important comment. Is only humans have no top line. Every living being has a baseline, and most living beings have a top line, and those who have the top line live without any stress and no challenges. Now, I'm not sure. I think the entire event could be focused on what you just said, but I appreciate that. I stick to your first statement there. Only humans have no top line. We don't have a top line. Anything is possible, and everything will be achieved in some era someday. And Julie, I can't even decipher everything that is there in your statement, but you have a methodology that you use to reinforce your own commitments on a day-to-day basis. And I encourage people to read what you've expressed here. And it's a very good philosophy on how to maintain and how to cope, and setting up negative consequences for not meeting ones. We can do that. I'm more on the positive side. It's like, as George said, we celebrate the successes, and that for me works better than itemizing the places that we failed. And but I do think that what you're saying here is reinforcing and a very good idea for a lot of people. So people read Julie's post there and see what you think. So moving on, we're going to talk about one more concept that I'm going to divulge my challenge. In taking on a challenge, because we all have our individual cases and studies regarding challenges, but in taking on a challenge like this, 30 days, commit myself to doing something for 30 days every single day without fail. And I want to make it clear that, if you miss a day in the midst of this challenge, don't say, oh, gee, I got to throw my hands up and not complete the challenge because I've already busted the perfect record that I wanted to have. If you drop out, drop out. I don't care. But if you stick with it, I do care. And if you miss a day early on, or if you miss a couple days, you get to the end of the 30 days, and the last 3 days you're doing exactly what you set out to do in the first place, that's a success to me. And the fact that you're still doing it, even though you missed a day or two, to me it's like, well, at least you stuck with the program and tried to pick up the pieces, and you didn't cry over the spilled milk of 1 or 2 or whatever days that you missed, and you completed the rest of the challenge. And that's as good as we can do sometimes. Barbara Quick was saying her life is so challenging she can't even wrap her brain around adding on a 30-day challenge to what she's doing. And I totally respect that. Barbara, I'm just pleased that you say you try to be here and you're here when you can be. And in that respect, you're meeting the challenges of your daily life every single day. And I'm amazed at the challenges that you conquer. So you would exemplify a person who has constant challenges and meets those challenges. And I don't even know that you need to take a 30-day challenge. But you're a great model to look at when people are considering challenges, because that's how your life is. But any last thoughts from anybody before we dive into the concept of setting up the challenge for the individuals watching?
I'll share one with you, Roland. It was something that Shakespeare wrote. And this is about the whole concept, the way our minds work. I think I'm paraphrasing here maybe. Nothing is good or bad, lest thinking make it so. So we need to be very cautious what our minds tell us. The mind thinks about what it can lose, the heart thinks about what it can give, and the spirit thinks about what it is.
Something I wanted to add to the top of that, and I find myself doing this with a lot of philosophical foundations when people are talking. Hang on a second, I need some air. I've been talking so much and doing so much I'm not breathing. I encourage everyone to take a deep breath with me and just relax. So I haven't had a chance to read all of Julie's statements here, but I'm going to read it and just take a break from my own thinking for a bit. Roland, if we do not set up incremental goals, daily accomplishments, as Shira said, I do not believe the big goals are possible. Very, very good point. We can accomplish things if we break them down into conquerable, achievable mini goals and micro goals. And if this keeps us making steps in the right direction, before we realize it, our goal will have been achieved because we kept on walking. Simple as that. If we keep on walking, if we show up and keep on walking, we're going to achieve something.
Roland, a quick interjection on that one. I think it was Buckminster Fuller said that sometimes a leap is necessary. You can't cross a chasm in 2 small steps.
Yeah, and so knowing when you have to take the bigger risk and being willing to take that is really vital to discovery, success, creativity, and those things. Okay, so at this point, I wanted to cover one little thing before we move on to what I was going to present. And that is that what should people be expecting regarding their own challenges? Because, of course, I'm thinking about mine, but I know that everyone's going to have their own thing. What can we say about expectations for creating and developing and accomplishing whatever their 30-day challenge is? What should they expect?
Simple statement. Expect success.
Okay, right and to the point. And why take a challenge if you don't think it's possible? So if we take on a challenge that we think is possible, or at least we think, I would love to achieve this. This would be something I would be proud of, and it would be something memorable and that I could tell people about and feel good about. That's success. So one step, success. Shira?
Yeah, and expect that it's going to be challenging. Expect the destruction to come because new creation cannot happen until the ground is clear. Okay, so we all know you have to clear the field and plant the seed before you get the harvest. And so that clearing of the field sometimes doesn't feel real good. Expect that, but set your perspective that when I see this piece that's not going to look good to me, I'm going to see that as the guiding light that I'm right on track. There's
Right.
my answer that it's working.
And there are immediately two things that come to mind with that. I was going to say expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
Now, because we're pushing and shoving a bunch of atoms in the universe, everything is going to move, and we're not necessarily going to see everything that's going to move as a result of our actions. We have expectations because we have goals, but goals so often cancel the consideration of a lot of different things going on at the same time. So I'm real big on intention stuff, and if we put our positive intention with positive vibes into a positive motion, we're going to see more than what we expect. Now, when the results start to show, when we start to seeing effects like the cause and effect thing, you push and shove atoms, they're going to take a different shape and they're going to push other atoms and we're going to have repercussions and stuff. Sometimes we get of effects that we don't want, and we end up saying, "Ooh, I didn't want that to happen. What the hell?" You know. And what I want to make clear is that when we have effects like that we didn't want, we have been given a gift of knowledge of something that we desire to change forthcoming. In other words, if you take a diet and all of a sudden you get sick because you ate too much beef, then you realize, wow, maybe there's a problem with eating too much beef. So you no longer eat beef, you eat chicken. You're going to make some choice changes according to the results. And if you go along with it and make choices that are positive and considerable, and you educate yourself in the process, you're going to make smart choices that get you even healthier than you'd originally intended. So now I'm not speaking out against beef. I love beef. But I'm just using that as an example that sometimes you discover things that you didn't know, and you can make additional.
I think it's helpful to view life as a constant feedback loop. It's always response there. It's always giving you a feedback response. So whatever you do, you watch for the results of that, and use that as the information for whatever changes you need to make.
That's right. So we're processing information. We're always learning. So we have to expect that if we put a challenge out there, we do something different than we've been doing, we're going to get different results, and we get to analyze those results and act accordingly. So expect the unexpected, and don't expect necessarily only the results that you expect. We have to broaden our horizons, open up our minds, and yet what we are expecting is a great inspiration and motivator, if need be, to accomplish sticking with the challenge. Okay, so we've kind of covered this pretty well, and we'll talk about the individual challenge in a little bit. And my plan is to discuss the pieces of what we'll need to accomplish the challenge. And next week, we will get everybody together who wants to take the challenge and say, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready to accomplish the A, B, C, D of what we have to assemble for you to accomplish your challenge? And we'll talk about those things. But right now, I'm going to talk about my end result, what I plan on achieving. So before I do that, I'll give you a little bit of background. There are some people that don't know that I'm in a wheelchair. And, well, you know, that was a challenge in itself. I had a stroke 4 years ago, little less than 4 years ago, 1 month less than 4 years ago. And when I had that stroke, it did a multitude of things to my body. But to summarize, it basically took the right half of my body, and I'm right-handed and right-legged. You know, if I was going to kick a ball, I kick with my right foot. But so I'm right-handed. But the right side of my body said, went blank, and the stroke put me in the hospital for almost 3 months. I went from the hospital 5 weeks, and they told me that to be in the hospital for 5 weeks was unheard of. You know, you're maybe a week or two, and then they stick you in a care center. But I was literally, they didn't know what to do with me, and I was in the hospital for 5 weeks. Then I went to a nursing center for 6 weeks. Then I went to another place, an acute rehab place, for another couple weeks. And then finally I said, I'm out of here. I think that I can help myself better by not being around this environment. And I literally wrote a 240-page book about my experience of being incarcerated, as the way I describe it, medical incarceration for almost 3 months. Let's see, what we still don't know what to do with you, Roland. Well, of course not. I'm not a person that you can do anything with because I'm so adamantly different from everybody, I think. But that's part of my strength, I think, is I don't care what people think. You know, I just got to do my thing. And luckily, I'm not a total jerk. Otherwise, being around a total jerk would cause me to lose every person watching this show, probably. But anyway, the concept of losing my abilities with my body, half my body, I laid in a bed for a while, and I could not even turn on my side. I can now, but when I was in the hospital, my first days in the hospital, I was reduced to half of my person, and less than that because I could not even do what I could normally do, even half as well. I couldn't walk. How do you half walk? I couldn't brush my teeth with my right hand. I couldn't turn over on my side. I couldn't do that. I just didn't have the strength and I didn't have the coordination, and half my body was now foreign to me. So even sitting up in bed, they would help me up, and I'd sit on the side of the bed, and I would immediately start to tip over because half my body wasn't working, so I couldn't sustain my upright ability. Now, almost 4 years later, at the 3-year mark, I had another what is called a TIA, a transient ischemic attack. It's like a mini stroke. And the funny thing about the mini stroke is that I had really high blood pressure. Even after my strokes were over with and I came home, and for 3 years I had high blood pressure. I went in the hospital overnight for this TIA, and I came out of it with my blood pressure almost normal. And it went from like a 150 over 100 to 125 over 85, which is almost normal, practically normal, especially for me. That was very normal. I mean, it was abnormal, really, but for me, it was where it was supposed to be. Not only that, I'm type 2 diabetic, and with my TIA, all of a sudden my blood sugar levels were almost normal too. And now I still take meds for all these things, and I'm still doing that. But I think that someday I won't even have to take these meds, because I'm a believer that, number one, the body has a biological blueprint of what it's supposed to be doing if it was 100%. And if I give it a chance, because this is what I believe as far as the universal laws of nature and humanity, I believe that my body will repair itself. Now, that being the basis of what I think about my situation, I believe that my challenge will take me back to being able to regain some of the things that I lost when I had my stroke. So that's what basically it involves. And what did I lose? Part of my comeback is that I had to learn how to type left-handed. So I do all my web design, and I work with clients. I do video editing and production. I do all these things left-handed, and it's like being right-handed. If you only have your left hand, you're kind of less than half of you until you figure out exactly what this tool can do. And so basically I had to retrain myself completely with my left hand to think and do left-handedly and one-handedly. So when we talk about typing, I probably type about 20 words a minute now, whereas with two hands I was doing my 40 or 50, which is pretty good for a two-finger typist. But I'm back up to maybe 20 words a minute left-handed. So you can see my time typing has been cut in half, but it didn't stop me from writing a book in 30 days. So I wrote a 240-page book in 30 days, and I thought, wow, well, if I can do that, then I have no excuse not to be typing things, entering data for websites and designing and doing those things. I also had to learn to use a touchpad instead of a mouse. So the exactness of using a mouse pad or a touchpad in doing critical graphics, down to the pixels, was a bit of a challenge too. And it takes more time, and I'm a little bit slower. But it did not stop me. So what in the process I discovered was not what I could not do, but what I can do, and so I focused on what George was talking about. I focused on the successes. So here's what I'm going to do as part of my challenge, because I've been doing the sound frequency therapy from Shira for about 5 months, and that's been helping my body, and I'm doing things and getting stronger. So I know I'm on the right track, moving in the right direction, but I don't even know if I can show you. Let's see. Okay, makes its appearance there. I've got this lame hand, and I can just barely, see if you can see it, I can just, it's kind of cramped up right now because I've been making a fist for a while. But, okay, can you see that move? Okay, there's a little bit of movement, and when my arm isn't cramped up, I can literally take that finger and go. That's all the movement I have in my right hand. Can't move my thumb, can't move my other fingers. That's it. And it takes me my left hand to reach over to my right hand and pull my fingers open for them to get movement and straighten out for the day whenever I do that. So here's my challenge. I used to play guitar. Play guitar since I was 13. I started playing guitar. An old Stella acoustic that we bought broke our piggy banks and paid $25 for. That's how I got started. But for the rest of my life, I not only played a lot of guitars, hollow body electrics, solid body electrics, acoustics, and classicals. I actually I apprenticed as a luthier, and I don't know if you know what that is, but a luthier, Zara Altera is doing an interview, and tomorrow she'll be doing the second part interview on a luthier who makes violins by hand, and it's a fascinating thing. And I've learned so much as a luthier that the program has got me mesmerized. I'm listening to this guy talk about shaping wood and carving wood and shaping sound holes and building violins and putting the finish on them. All this stuff is just fascinating to me. Well, that's what I used to do with solid body electric guitars. So I literally carved a guitar using various types of hand tools out of a big block of wood. And I still own the guitar today. Actually, my daughter's got it and she's playing it. But it's a real hot rod. It's quite a good guitar. So that's what I used to do. I still have my acoustic handy, and my goal is in 30 days after the start of the challenge to hold a pick with my right hand and pluck the strings and play a chord live on the show in 30 days. Now actually the 4 weeks later after we start, or actually 3 weeks later, it'll be the end of 28 days, I believe. I think it's the Tuesday that comes onto the calendar just before the end of the 30 days at the 28-day mark or something like that. And so before the 30 days are up, my goal is to strum the guitar live on the show.
Cool.
So, so what kind of a challenge is that for me? I can't hold a pick. I can't move my arm. I can't hold my guitar. I could probably force the guitar under my arm and get my arm there, but the natural impulse will be to grab the guitar and maybe cave in the top of the guitar. I don't know, but I'm going to try it. And my concept is I've been making little gradual improvements on my arm. And I've been doing things like able to stand a little bit more than I could after my TIA. The TIA came and I had to make progress. I was walking on a walker a little bit, taking 20, 30 steps at a time, and dragging my right foot, but I was nevertheless getting myself down the hallway, you know. But after my TIA, I couldn't even do that. Even though my blood pressure was regulated and my blood sugar was better, I couldn't walk, you know, even with the walker. So now I'm just getting to the point where I can stand as I'm transferring from my bed to my wheelchair, or from my wheelchair to the bed. I can literally stand up on two legs. I can put weight on my right leg long enough to move my left foot, readjust myself, and maneuver around, and to then sit down again, either on the bed or on the wheelchair. So I am making improvement, you know, and I'm glad of that and very hopeful that it'll improve. But we're going to make a big leap, and I'm going to say, you know, I could have said, I want to walk in 30 days, but I'm showing people you can be reasonable and yet extremely challenging for your challenges in 30 days. So for me, I'm going to play the guitar in 30 days.
Roland, I see you doing it. I hope you see you doing it too.
If you don't see yourself doing it, you're not going to do it. So if I don't see myself doing it, I'm not going to make it. So I'm going to totally envision myself doing it, and I'm going to be really happy when I'm strumming the guitar live.
Yeah. And when you're seeing yourself do it, feel it. Feel how exciting that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a big piece of it. So what's the game plan for helping people to set up how they're going to do their 30 days?
Yeah. Let's spend the rest of the time here talking about how they can prepare and what they can expect to have to do to be ready to start the challenge on March 1st. So the first thing is that we're talking about a sound bite that we said is a minimum of 5 minutes, but ideally it's something that you'll listen to for more like 20 minutes. You want to go ahead and address that, Shira?
Sure, certainly. I think even before we do that, though, we actually have to have a game plan, like what is our challenge, and have that clear and in writing. But the soundtrack is about frequency. Okay, sound plays really powerful work on us, and like, for instance, when we have a sounding group that meets here once a month and we sound together, and we'll sometimes use the crystal bowls, but we mainly use our voices. When we have that group, I don't care what my day has been like, how tired I am, after the group I can't sleep. And sometimes I can't get to sleep till 1 in the morning because the frequencies have woke me up and empowered me, have raised my frequencies so strongly that my body doesn't relax back down. So we got to know that sound can do that for us. The most powerful thing that we're going to be using it for is to bring in frequencies that will help balance to get us to our goals. So those frequencies need to be nourishing. They need to not excite us, but uplift us, so that as we're falling asleep listening to those frequencies, and that's the best time to do it. You can listen to your frequencies any time of the day, but if you do it when you're falling asleep, because of what happens when you fall into the theta brainwave pattern, those frequencies will repeat themselves in your mind and throughout your body for the next 3 to 4 hours. So you listen to them for about 20 minutes, set them up so that they just shut themselves off, or go off while or turn them off yourself when you get to the end of your 20 minutes, and let the frequencies affect your body. You're looking for sound that feels good to you, that's one thing, but we were talking earlier, Roland, that sometimes the tracks that feel good to us aren't necessarily what's going to bring change to us, because sometimes we gravitate toward frequencies that help us feel normal. or safe. And so if we have a strong pattern that we have created that is our safe zone but doesn't really serve us, we're going to sometimes be drawn to frequencies that will validate that in us. So what I would do is either take, if you're going to be listening to songs that you really love, take 3 or 4 of them. I prefer music tracks rather than tracks that have words in them. A lot of times the words can take your mind off to thinking about things that would not be helpful for you in the shifting that you need. So I try to do just music tracks. But if you are picking from those, either write the names down on papers and fold them, or put the CDs so that you can't see the titles. Ask your body which one is going to be best for your frequency shift, for the changes you need, and then pick it out random from those so that your head's not getting in the way and you're not picking from a pattern, you're picking from the wisdom of literally of the body.
Sounds great. A couple of things that will help people do that is if you listen to the replay of this and the last 5 minutes of what Shira was addressing, to selectively select your music that you will be listening to. Now, there was an additional thing that we want to consider, and that is the checklist of positive affirmations that you were suggesting, Shira. So if you would give us a couple minutes on that.
Sure. So take what it is your challenge is. Where are you going to? And instead of writing, I want to get there or what I want, you write it as already having been accomplished. I am this. I have this. I've done this. I am playing the guitar. Okay? So you write your affirmations, or I am vibrantly healthy, able to use my right arm to play the guitar. Whatever works for you. It's got to be your language, but create 3 or 4 written affirmations that speak to the change that you are going to. You know, and it could be a step along the way even that, you know, maybe it's not the complete process yet, but if you had this in your empowerment space, it would get you there. Okay, write those down, and then for 5 minutes before you go to bed, about 5 minutes before you go to bed, either memorize those and speak them to yourself or read them to yourself. What you are doing is setting new information in the unconscious. You are literally setting a process of information in motion before you lay down to go to sleep. And your next day will be based on what your subconscious processes while you sleep.
Okay. This is really important, people. If you are considering doing this challenge or a challenge similarly, whether you talk to us or not, whether you join us on actually powwowing with the challenge or whatever you do, we must do it consistently. We must stick with it for 30 days. We must expect change, which we cannot classify as is it something that we're going to like or not like, because we're going to experience change. We're going to get results. And we must invite those things as signals, as things to celebrate, as things that will actually be the mark of our taking charge of our body and adjusting it intentionally. You're not sitting back and being a victim and saying, oh, I can't do this, can't do that. The declarations of the positive affirmations are so focused on the I am, and that is that it's declaring who you are in spirit and who you are in reality, because it happens in the spiritual first. But the spiritual precedes the physical. And when we start declaring who we are, that's when we become who we are. And so right now I can say, oh, I'm an invalid web designer in a wheelchair. That's who I am. But the thing is, that's not who I am. That's what I was up until this moment. But what I'm thinking right now changes all of that and allows me to take charge of what I'm thinking and decide exactly what I'm going to be tomorrow. So that's what the 30-day challenge is all about. Let's decide what we want. Let's decide what we desire. And let's take action and become who we want to be. That's what the 30-day challenge is all about.
Another simple tool, Roland, to help keep on track because oftentimes, especially if we're in high-powered jobs or really complicated lives, or we just have a lot going on in our own world, take a little sticky note and just a few words to remind you that when you get up in the morning, the first thing that you see when you look in your mirror is that little sticky note that says, align yourself with the intention for your challenge. Just put the thought in your mind at the beginning of your day, and that will be enough to help keep you on track a little better when things are pushing at you from the outside world. So you don't look back and go, oh, dang, here I am at the end of the day and I didn't do anything, so that you don't have to struggle. But if you get there, just go, okay, so now I'm putting my sticky note up. That's not going to happen to me again. But that little reminder also, touch base with yourself in the evening and reassure yourself for anything you accomplished today, however small it may look to you. Take it in, breathe it in, be proud of yourself. Be grateful that you did it. Feel the accomplishment of whatever the little piece was.
Hey, Shira, isn't it one thing as well? We need to notice the subtle signals that we get from the universe, because we're not trained to recognize the little nudges and thumbs up that we get from the universe. They're important, but we often miss them. And that's something we need to be aware of as we go through this.
Yeah, that's a hard one for people. But ultimately, when something triggers you and you go, oh, that was interesting, or that was cute, or that looks just like what I was reading this morning, those are the subtle signals. Is that, don't take them for granted. When it comes up, go, whoa, that's a reassurance for where I am right now. Also, if you're open to it, Roland, and you want to, anybody who wants to take this challenge, I'd like to personally offer that if they want to email me and tell me what their challenge is around, that I will send them a couple free MP3s of the soundtracks that I use in my frequency work.
Great.
Do that.
Now that's definitely a step in the right direction, and that would help people immensely because they won't be figuring out and trying to choose the music that's appropriate. So that's cool. Everyone listening, if you want to do something that's going to be a remarkable change in you, the part of the soundtrack can be influenced by a soundtrack cut, a track that Shira will send you that is appropriate for your challenge, and so that'll be great. And if you have any other issues regarding your challenge, how do I record this? How do I listen to it? How do I set myself up so I can do this every night? Contact me directly and we'll work out the details. If it can be solved, we can work at it and solve it. And I think that if everyone's watching this show, you probably have all the stuff you need. If you're watching this show, you probably have all the stuff you need. And, there are so many things that I want to enhance our statements with, so I'll do a sign-off here in a couple of minutes, but anyone else have some last things that they would like to contribute as we take our 1 week walk to our starting of our challenge? Anybody?
Bring it, you guys. Let's for it.
Okay.
Bring it.
I've been dead silent because I was enjoying Roland commit to himself publicly. And I know he's done it privately. And I just passed a message to Shria. I call that remarketing to our own mind. As we look around the internet and we see something we think we want to buy, and all of a sudden it pops up as a remarketing. So thinking of it as remarketing to our own mind. And I applaud you for making that public commitment. It's tantamount to the old, can I get a witness? You got him.
That's another tool, Carlo. You just hit on something really powerful. That for people to really take their challenges to the max, one of the best ways that you can bring that out in yourself is to tell everyone around you what you're doing.
And remember the words, yes, thank you. And remember the wisdom of Chuck Berry. At one time he was credited with saying, never write a check with your mouth that your butt can cash.
Yeah, but do be ready too. If you share it with everybody in your world, if they don't resonate with you, if they think you can't do it, Be independent of the good opinion of others. Okay? They all have an opinion. Let them have it. But share so that you can step up to the plate and get to your program.
I agree totally, and I'm the perfect one to adhere to that advice. Um, I'm a nonconformist to a major degree, and as I've said before, I've probably fired as many bosses as have fired me. Um, that's because I just if I don't resonate with someone who's I don't mind being having somebody in charge of me, but if I don't resonate with what they stand for, I can't stay. I can't stick around that kind of environment, and that's why I work for my for myself um, as a part of that. By the way, we wake is saying that Zera Altair's hangout, and it's the one that has the luthier, the Grand Master luthier. By the way, the guy's the real deal. He's got probably the biggest collection of violins in America, and the guy built most of them or repairs them himself. Mass-produced violins, it's just like mass-produced guitars. It's hard to even play one, but a custom instrument is just a miracle in itself. So that's something that you can learn more about watching Zara Altair's show, and it's probably going on right now. And I'm going to have to watch the replay because I'm way too slow getting out of my own hangout. Also, Julie Sager-Narenberg says, she's thanking me. What an accomplishment, Roland, bravo. Reasonable yet challenging is the best mix for visualizing success. And, when you take on reasonable challenges, there are people that go beyond the reasonable and say, I'm going to do this. And everyone looks at it and says, oh, you crazy fool. Man, that's ridiculous. I can't believe it. And if you bow down to what other people think that you can't do, you're dust. I mean, there are plenty of, as in the majority of people, who are going to be your naysayers for a couple of reasons. Number one, they don't see that happening every day, and they figure you're going to try, but you're going to fail, because that's what we see happening all the time. And additionally to that, they don't want to take on challenges for their own self because they don't feel up to it. So they don't do it. They don't want to see you succeed either. And so they want somebody sympathetic with their own stuff. And if that's the case, those people are not necessarily going to be supportive of you. But in my case, I've got people like Barbara Quick. Roland, I am one of your cheerleaders for you to do what you are planning, and playing your guitar. But George Stewart, in knowing you, will accomplish your goal. And thank you very much. And I believe it too. Otherwise, to me, it was some bit of a safe bet, so to speak, because I really believe this stuff. Just like I believe, for instance, that the spirit lives on after death. I believe that too. That's why I don't fear death. So I don't fear a lot of things. I think am I fearless? No. I have my fears. I don't like pain any more than the next person. However, I'm up for the challenge. So we're going to take it. And with that, we're going to wrap up the day. I really want to thank a lot of the people in the audience who have been commenting. Sorry I can't just suck you into the green room and include you in the conversation, but we might even do that someday. And in the meantime, I thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Tell people about it if they want to do a challenge with us. If you have a friend that needs to do something like this, let them know that they've got some support here, and share this video with them and give them the opportunity to watch through an hour and see if they're inspired to do a challenge themselves. So if you would, please share this video. We'd like to see a half a dozen people doing the challenge with us and see if we can change some lives. Because if we show people they can change their own lives, think about the fact if everyone starts to do it. And that's what I want to see. You can change your own freaking life. Don't wait for the universe to take you by the proverbial balls and lead you down the path that they want you to. Take some chances, but take charge. And you'll find out that you are indeed in charge of your own life.
Hear, hear.
If you want a real challenge beyond belief, let the universe take you there. You don't want it that way. That's what the car accident was for me. I couldn't listen. The universe went slap, you're down for 2 years. You really don't want the Mack truck.
On the other hand, you also have the power of the universe. And if you become intentional about this, that becomes your power instead of the universe and everyone else's wishes governing over what happens to you in the state of victimhood. Because as it is, the Lord helps he who helps himself, but he also gives you free will to be what you want and to do what you want. And if you want to be a victim, he's going to say, okay.
Yeah. Go more victim for you.
So, yeah. So let's not choose victimhood. Let's choose
Empowerment.
And with that, we can see who steps up to the plate and wants to be a part of this challenge. You have 7 days to decide and to get ready, because on March 1st, we begin. In the meantime, this is Roland signing off for the What is the Positive Gang? And we asked that question, well, we're going to be answering it in 7 days. Thank you, everybody, for participating. See you next week. And in between, if you want to contact us, as soon as possible is okay. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.